Hi there, my name's Guy, you're watching Midwinter Minis, and this video has been very kindly sponsored by Skillshare. If you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know it's pretty obvious that I love Warhammer 40,000. I love the over-the-top aesthetic, I love the grimdark vibe, I love the models, I love the terrifying setting where there are no goodies, I even love the admittedly hit-and-miss computer games. But there is one thing that I don't love. Space Marines. They're used in nearly all the promo material for the franchise. They have, by a large margin, the biggest and most frequently updated range of models. They're the protagonists in most of the official video games. They've been featured in every single starter set for the tabletop game. That's 30 years of releases, and going into the future, I don't imagine that's going to change anytime soon. And yeah, I can hear what you're saying to yourself right now. Guy, why don't you love Space Marines, you massive idiot? They're awesome. Yeah, sure, the premise of giant, hulking, grizzled, genetically engineered, acid-spitting man monsters that you read about in the books sounds like a pretty interesting faction to play in the game, but I feel like their representation in that game, both in the models and in the artwork, is very polite, very sanitized. Most current depictions of Space Marines, no matter what chapter they belong to, show them through a pretty glorified and heroic lens. Chiseled features, well-proportioned, often very traditionally handsome. I often joke that Space Marines look more like hunky accountants who've been hitting the gym than post-human killing machines. Well, in this video, I'm going to reimagine what a Space Marine might look like, based on their canonical creation, looking at all of the operations they have, new organs they get, indoctrination and training they receive, and, where appropriate, using real-world medical examples of what this would actually do to the human body. And then create some artwork to reflect what I think that realistic Space Marine might look like. And lucky for you, I'm not going to be doing this alone. I'm a fan of Warhammer, sure, but I'm not an expert by any means, especially not on the lore. So I've invited my friend, Arbiter Ian, to help me out.
Hi Guy, good to be here. I look forward to seeing what monstrous creation you're going to come up with.
First collaboration of 2022, yay! Ian runs a really engaging, beginner-friendly Warhammer lore channel that presents things in terms that everyone can understand, without the pretense and pomp that kind of puts me off other channels that do similar stuff. And so you've actually got something to look at while we talk about the crazy operations these young Space Marine aspirants have to go through. I'll be doing some quick illustrations. I used to draw all the time when I was a kid, but it's something I just fell out of the habit of doing, and I suppose that's where the sponsor of this video, Skillshare, comes in. Skillshare is an online creative learning platform with thousands upon thousands of classes in video format, which, for me, is the ideal way to learn new skills. I mean, you're watching this video right now, so chances are you're in the same visual learning boat, huh? It's a great way to not only learn new skills in whatever creative field interests you, like I said, it's a fantastic way of reigniting an old passion, which, for me, was drawing. I watched quite a few classes, but I think my favourite was Dynamic Anatomy for Artists by Robert Mazzullo, which gave me a great refresher on how muscles in the human body move and sit in different positions. Now, I know you can find tutorials here on YouTube too. I mean, I make loads of them for miniature painting, but you know as well as I do that free-to-view tutorials can be a bit hit and miss. The main benefit of Skillshare for me was how concise and to the point everything is. In every class I've watched so far, there's never a wasted moment, so you can make the most of your time and expand your skill set without getting frustrated. If you want to give Skillshare a try, and I fully recommend you do, enter the code MidwinterMinis when you sign up, or follow the link in the video description, and the first 1,000 people who do will get a free month membership on me. Thanks again for sponsoring this video, Skillshare. Now, I know quite a lot of you watching this will maybe only know of Space Marines from stuff like the Astartes miniseries or the Space Marine video game, and don't necessarily know all of the gory details behind how these sci-fi super soldiers are made, so I'm going to let Ian fill you in on their grim, dark origin story.
Hi Guy, so the idea that Space Marines are these genetically engineered super soldiers has been a part of Warhammer 40k since right at the very start, since Rogue Trader way back in 1987. But back in those days there were no codexes or Black Library novels, so the first description of how to actually make one was published in White Dwarf in 1988 in an article written by the creator of 40k, Rick Priestley. In this little article, the Imperial technicians who work in the Imperial lab get a sort of managerial visit from their boss, the Emperor, and give him a tour of their facilities. In those days, the Emperor was more of a general, powerful ruler rather than the demigod scientist he's portrayed as today. As they lead him around the facility, they explain the general process of making a Marine and then each of the organs in turn. In brief, each Space Marine has 2 progenoid glands growing inside them, and each of those progenoid glands contains the gene seed for 19 different organs. The chapter's apothecaries can use those gene seed to create 19 zygotes, I'm not sure if that's the correct word, and then these zygotes grow into the 19 different organs. These organs are then implanted into the recruit in various stages, a few at a time. Each of these organs is extremely complicated, and because many of the organs only work properly when another one's present, the removal or mutation of one organ can affect the functioning of others. So for these reasons, implants have to be constantly monitored, and apparently it's quite common for Marines to have to undergo corrective surgery or chemotherapy to rebalance their metabolism. Recruits also have to be really young to start this. They're taken as children before puberty kicks in, often against their will, which is why people sometimes refer to Marines as child soldiers. Anyway, unlike pretty much everything else in 40k, this description hasn't really changed much since. It's been updated and reprinted over the years in White Dwarf and book series like the Index Astartes books, but the text has remained the same. The only big addition was when Primaris Marines were introduced in 2017, and 3 more organs were added to explain why they were so much bigger. A Space Marine nowadays has 22 organs. So the general idea of what makes a Space Marine has remained the same, but the way they're depicted has changed. Back in the early days, Space Marines were much more of a liability. They were these crazed, barely controllable killers recruited from penal legions or feral planets, and as likely to rebel against the Imperium as serve it. You can see this in the art from the time and in the background, where various Imperial commanders and their Space Marine chapters were always going rogue and starting civil wars. Of course, nowadays you're much more likely to see Space Marines depicted as glorious, upstanding heroes, even good-looking ones sometimes, but the basic facts of what they are and how they're made are just as horrific as before.
So with some of the great tutorials on Skillshare giving me guidance, using a technical pencil and boring old printer paper, I sketched out all the main stages of a Space Marine aspirant's journey to becoming a power-armoured super soldier. Every operation, every new organ, and even a few full body reference sketches to give you an idea of how ludicrously large and distorted they become as they grow through their early teens. I then scanned them in, imported them into Affinity Photo, and using my pen display, I refined them a little bit. Cleaned up the lines, added a bit of shading and highlighting, nothing super fancy. Okay then Ian, let's take it from the start. As you mentioned before, here we have the young aspirant, only 10 years old, taken away from everything he knows and ready to start a new life.
Yeah, and our young aspirant doesn't really know what's in store for him. He's going to have 14 operations over the next 8 years. Some of them are pretty big operations, and sometimes there are multiple operations in the same year, just a few months apart. The first operations are conducted at age 10, and they seem to be mostly involved with trying to make this 10-year-old aspirant as big as possible so that he can accept the rest of the augmentations that will come later. The first thing that happens is we install the os modular, which is a brain implant that changes the hormonal balance of the aspirant to make him grow bigger and grow faster, strengthens the bones, fuses the rib cage together, which seems like an interesting choice when there's an awful lot of operations yet to go. It also changes the brain-gut balance to encourage the absorption of ceramic materials that are apparently put into his diet. This will grow the aspirant over the next 2 years in conjunction with the next 2 implants, all installed at the same time, 10 years old. Pretty big one. The secondary heart is installed, so he gets a second heart straight away. That's going to be needed to keep him alive through the rest of these operations. And finally, there's the biscopia, which goes sort of in the thorax, and it helps out the os modular by boosting muscle growth, which is presumably needed if your bones are growing very, very fast.
So with these first implants installed, our tween Space Marine will probably start to experience body changes very similar to those found in the real-world hormonal disorder called acromegaly. This causes your body to produce too much growth hormone, and if it happens at such a young age, it results in an abnormally tall final adult height, along with lifelong bone growth in the hands, feet, and head. doubled up with the muscle accelerating hormones they're going to be producing too, and the aspirant is going to become pretty huge pretty quickly. The 12-year-old aspirant, who was just 5'5" or 165 centimeters at the start of the process, is now a mighty 6'5" or 195 centimeters. And believe it or not, this height change is based on real examples of adolescent acromegaly.
So with the initial stage of growth done, the next operations are about reinforcing that new grown skeleton. These are all the implants that were added later when Primaris marines were introduced. So this is all the stuff that was developed by Belisarius Caul in the background, and that's really, really obvious with the first one of these, which is sinew coils. These are metal threads that wrap around the aspirant's bones. It looks like mostly in their bigger limbs to increase their strength, and probably the most obvious Mechanicus one of these. At the same time, he gets the Magnificat, which is a little implant at the front of the brain, which it boosts the effect of the last two implants, the Os Modular and the Biscopia, which are the ones that just make him big, so he gets even bigger. And then finally, the Belisarian Furnace is installed, which goes between the two hearts and sort of gives them a bit of a kick in moments of trauma and heals them faster. So some sort of equivalent to a big adrenaline spike. By age 13, he gets a couple of smaller but very well-known organs. You get the hemostamen, which increases hemoglobin production and apparently regulates all the other implants. This has gone into a lot about how they all need to work together. And secondly, they get the Laramans organ, which is a really well-known one. It's very visual, so you see it a lot in a lot of the background novels. The Laramans organ causes the marine's blood to almost instantly scar over and heal really, really quickly.
Two weird things about the Laramans organ from my perspective. They've come this far before being given something that helps them heal from all the surgeries. I mean, it seems a bit harsh to be honest, but it also means that any wounds they receive in battle are going to heal absolutely hideously. Basically just frozen in a state of trauma rather than going through the body's natural healing process.
Age 14 is an easy year for the aspirants. The only implant at age 14 is the catalepsian node, which apparently allows the brain to sleep in sections like a dolphin.
The 14-year-old aspirant is now standing at 7'2" or 218 centimeters, and he's absolutely surging through puberty. All of the physique, size, and strength-enhancing hormones, drugs, and treatments are causing premature aging. There are many real-world examples of extremely tall, supremely strong individuals with acromegaly, which might help you visualize a real Astartes in the 21st century, albeit a 14-year-old one. The heavyweight boxer Nikolai Valuev towers over his opponents. The great Kali could literally manhandle almost anyone. Tai Shandong's tremendous height and reach gives him a deadly advantage. And let's not forget the man, the myth, the legend, Andre the Giant.
At age 15, the aspirant's going to go through 4 more surgeries. In all of these, he'll get a number of upgrades to his body. The first of those is the Lyman's ear. Officially, that replaces the outer, inner, and middle ears and makes him immune to dizziness and motion sickness, which is presumably very useful when you're in space and fighting on the gravity of lots of different worlds.
Now, a peculiar thing about the human ear, and hearing in general, is that it's the only mechanical or electromechanical sense we have. So if we're getting rid of practically everything except the cosmetic ear, I reckon it would just make more sense to replace the whole thing with a better ear, one that's less likely to get ripped off in a nasty fight with a war boss.
Continuing at age 15, we have a couple of brain operations. First, the oculobe's implanted, which goes behind the eye in the brainstem and gives them much better eyesight to improve distance, low light vision, that sort of thing. And at roughly the same time, we get the Susan membrane. It's the suspended animation membrane, but I always think of it as a Susan membrane, and I'd love to come up with some history here where, there was a sleepy member of staff at Games Workshop in 1984, but that would be entirely made up, so I won't.
Yeah, I think it's pronounced Sus-Ann, not Susan.
The Sus-Ann membrane, which allows the marine to go into some sort of hibernated state. This, again, you see occasionally in some of the background books where you find marines that have been in suspended animation for years as a way of preserving themselves. Maybe they were the last person left on a planet or something like that. But year 15 is not over yet. 3 more things need to be installed. The marine gets a preomnor, which is a organ that goes in just before the stomach to neutralize any poisons or dangerous foods and makes it possible for the marine to subsist off pretty much anything. They get the multi-lung, which is another lung that lets them breathe toxic air or breathe underwater. It's amazing how many of these are just, if an organ's useful, put in another one. That seems to be a theme of the Emperor's Space Marine creation process. But finally, at age 15, one of the other really famous ones goes in, which is the omophagia, which is a glandular network that connects the brainstem and the stomach, and it allows the Marine to learn by eating. If you take a bite out of the brain of a recently deceased enemy, you can learn what they were thinking. Probably of all the implants, the one that relies most on space magic. Having just about made it through the age of 15, the aspirant is then thrown into the next round of surgeries at age 16. Age 16, they're going to get the melanchromic organ, which goes at the back of the spine and controls skin melanin levels, which allows the Marine to very quickly change his skin colour to protect from radiation and sunlight. That's basically what our skin does anyway, it's just faster for a Marine. They also get the neuroglottis, which goes in the front of the throat and enhances the taste and smell of the Marine, so they can track people. I mean, Spaceballs very fond of that one, I think. They get a mucranoid gland, which goes at the back of the spine and allows them to sweat this waxy substance from their skin that forms a little cocoon. Again, you see this a lot in the same stories where Marines are in suspended animation on a world for years and years and years. They'll be wrapped in this waxy cocoon-like substance. And finally, to round out age 16, we get the oolytic kidney, which allows the Marine to filter and process toxins way more quickly.
Man, that was a seriously nasty 16th year. I thought I had it pretty bad just doing my GCSEs.
It doesn't stop there, though. We should say that by this age, they're probably working as Marines. They're probably in the Scout Corps, learning how to do their jobs. But the rituals of implantation have not finished. They're going to get their 12th operation at age 17, which is the Betcher's gland. This is another really famous one. It's the one that allows Marines to spit acid.
So I can definitely see a problem here. In the fluff, it says that the organ also neutralizes the venom in the Space Marine's own body, but it's acidic too, right? So after any repeated use, an Astarte's mouth is gonna be very badly burned and acid scarred. Twin that with the Laraman's organ making stuff heal almost instantly, and a Space Marine's kisser is gonna be all kinds of messed up in a matter of months, let alone years.
Anyway, at age 17, their reproductive organs are finally reinstalled, or at least the ones that matter to a Space Marine. The progenoids go in. So the progenoid glands are the glands from which new gene seed is made and from which new Marines that can be made. And there are two of them implanted, one in the side of the neck and one at the top of the chest, like around the clavicle. These will then mature over the next few years. I think the common practice is that one gets taken out when the Marine's matured and the other one stays out and is removed when they die, if an apothecary is nearby.
Now, weirdly, the progenoids are actually one of the organs we can see the size of in the tabletop game. Fabius Bile has a little buddy that's yanking one out of a Primaris Marine, and it's bloody huge. Who has space for a tennis ball-sized extra organ in their neck? No one, that's who. Your neck is full of the stuff that needs to be there, and it's going to be sticking out, tender and vulnerable.
Also, I'm not sure the Emperor really thought through having the very deadly corrosive acid just above the extremely important repository of the chapter's future.
I know, right? It's almost like this is all made up.
At age 18, the Marine should by this point be fully trained and almost ready to go into action in power armor, and in order to do that they're going to need a black carapace. So this is an absolutely huge operation. It covers his chest, back, abdomen, thighs and upper arms, and in all those places the skin is pulled back. I mean, by this point with all the surgeries he's pretty much perforated anyway, and under that skin is inserted a thin membrane that interfaces with his nervous system. Various plug points are installed around his body which will plug directly into various bits of his power armor.
So that neatly sums up the, let's be honest, pretty nightmarish metamorphosis a child has to go through to become an Imperial Space Marine in the universe of Warhammer 40,000. So it's time to throw aside your preconceptions of what you think a Space Marine might look like, and for me to show you my reimagined version. Artistically and style-wise, I've always been a bit obsessed with Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man drawing, and I think it would be fun to create a kind of post-Vitruvian man in a similar style, but with the updated, monstrous form of the full-grown Space Marine. Okay, are you ready, Ian?
Okay, let's see what you've made. That's brilliant. That is, yeah. I mean, how old's this guy?
I mean, I'm going to say in my mind he's 19 years old, fresh off the production line, really.
Yeah, he looks like he's been through the wars already, doesn't he?
I wanted to give you an idea of what a Space Marine would look like from the get-go, without any horrific battle scars that they would acquire later in life.
Especially when you realise the whole Black Characters thing only extends to the upper arms and upper legs, so it does look like he's wearing a t-shirt of surgery. He's much more gaunt and withered in the face. It's amazing. You can see all the scars there. You can see the scars around the abdomen. He's been through a lot to get to this stage. You can see the huge bulbous progeroid gland. That is massive. He's also got quite the receding hairline. You know, he's been through a lot. He's had a hard life so far.
As you can see, we've got all of the telltale signs and markers that I spoke about of the genetic conditions that have been induced in this Space Marine. Pronounced and asymmetrical brow and chin, very large hands and knuckles, huge feet, enlarged joints, and premature aging from all the hormonal tinkering.
Indeed, and we can see there also his teeth and lower gum just pretty much gone.
I mean, yeah, all that drooling acid and instantly healing has burned away his lower lip, created some really nasty acid scarring, and unfortunately he's lost a few teeth as well.
Well, I think it's great. I think he looks a lot more like the Space Marines of yore and the Space Marines that were maybe intended when this background was written than the guys do nowadays.
Not a happy bunny at all, but looking much more like a brutal war machine than a heroic poster boy of the Imperium, hopefully.
Thanks, Guy. Well done. It looks amazing.
I thought it also might be a bit of fun to give you a direct size comparison of this reimagined Space Marine next to a regular human. I mean, I say regular, it's me. For reference, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'3" or 1.90 m. I'm often the tallest person in a room, but yeah, as you can see, not next to this dude. Well, I don't think I could have asked for a better reaction from Ian, to be honest. Huge thanks to him for helping me out with this video. This one took quite a long time to make. It's been a couple of weeks since my last video, but I had great fun making it and I hope you really enjoyed it as well. Let me know what you think about my reimagined version of a Space Marine in the comments. If you like this nasty piece of art that I've created, you can have one if you want. I've had a limited number of heavyweight art prints made that I'm going to number and sign by hand, probably on a live stream, and all being well, we should be able to ship them out by the start of May. They're only going to be £25 each, so check the link in the description if you want one for your wall. They're 12 by 12 inch prints as well, so they should be really easy to find frames for. If you're already a supporter of Midwinter Minis on Patreon, check our recent posts because you'll be able to find a tasty little discount code. And speaking of Patreon, I always like to give new members a quick shout out in videos, so here are the newest members of the Midwinter Minis Patreon family. Puck Van Zutphen, Libby Holmes, Mdon27, Thine Dude, Ian, Helio de Gredo, Old Man Smells, Zombie Burger, Adrian Palmer, Jeff Williams, Patrick Lundstrom, Sean Tyree, Names Are Hard, Andy Smith, Scapuli, Andrew Farrington, Johan Lowenmo, Ben Hoover, Cabal T, Andre, Todus Mondus, Lau and Rav, Nathan Rose, Fia the Dog, Chris Matz, Ronan Uta, Aaron McDonald, Acceleration, Micah War, S. Boogles, Sarah Kitty, Sasha Hetzko, Drew Ackerson, Viking Phil, Just Jack, James Kenning, and Connor Robinson. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to say goodbye to a really beloved member of the Midwinter Minis community and tabletop community in general, Steel Angel John, who passed away recently. He was an incredibly active, welcoming, and positive member of the Midwinter Minis Discord server, and it's not an exaggeration to say that he will be greatly missed. And that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out the Skillshare link in the description if you fancy a little bit of self-improvement for yourself, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.